David Jaffe, I'd say that you have been ruining gaming and this industry as a whole for long enough. It's time somebody had balls big enough to stand up to you, the abhorrent practices that you've introduced to my industry, the disgusting gameplay elements that we still have hints of today that is somehow like a cockroach, survived fucking nuclear war, gone through 3 generations at this point and are still prevalent. And it's time somebody took that mask, that white bearded mask off your face and exposed you for the clown that you truly are to the rest of the world. But first, let me remind you, because your boomer ass probably has no idea who I am. I'm dead fucking metal. I have been repping the gaming industry for over 30 years. I've been, in no particular order, a professional critic, a professional games journalist. I used to perform analysis on video games for various websites until, inevitably, we would have to cover so much trash that I'd have to walk away. And now here I am on YouTube, a free and open platform where I can expose the seedy underbelly of the gaming industry, and I cannot think of a man who has done more single-handed damage to this entire medium rather than you, Jaffe. I mean, God of War, really? One of the most trash pieces of dilapidated dog shit I've ever played. God of War is the most overrated game of all time. Objective fact, not a subjective opinion. God of War is responsible for instilling into the mainstream a bunch of ridiculously horrendous gameplay mechanics that were well on their way to dying out, but Jaffe had to resuscitate and bring back to life, like fixed camera angles. Boo, disgusting. What fucking game uses fixed camera angles today? The Medium? How'd that game do? And, you know, God of War 2 was probably worse in almost every way than God of War 1, but we have to contextualize this. This is from the same man, the same buffoon who thought Twisted Metal was a good game. I remember back in the day, this was back when real gamers such as myself were in something of a boom period. You see, there were great games coming out on the regular. It's not like today where you get 1, maybe 2 games a year that are actually worth a shit. No, you were getting 1, maybe 2 games that were worth a shit on the weekly, it seemed like. Back in the mid to late 90s, video games peaked. Video games were everywhere. I was loving it. All my boys were loving it. We were just enjoying being fans of the medium. But I tell you this right now, we were a group of about 6. We saw this game coming out, this vehicular combat simulator. You know, it's got guns, it's got a clown, it's got fire. So we're all like, hell yeah, man, this looks exactly like we want. An injection of testosterone right into our fucking nutsack. Oh my God, once we were all done watching the trailer, our dicks were hard, we were drooling at the mouth, we were salivating for this fucking game. And we waited, and Twisted Metal came out, and we got it, and we put the disc into our system. We were so careful. None of us wanted to scratch it. We were considering it a holy grail. We thought that we were about to have a direct line to God himself, and that if the good Lord above could make a video game, it would be as close to Twisted Metal as one could come. And as we fired the game up, we played a few rounds, we got a feel for the controls, we saw the gameplay mechanics, we saw how everything played out. One by one, we all took turns going into the bathroom, puking, because we were so fucking sick at how deceived we were. We were so literally sick to our stomachs at how much the trailer had lied, misrepresented the end product. Completely different experiences. Go watch the original trailer for Twisted Metal, then go play the game. Do the same with God of War. You know, IGN gave God of War a hell of a glowing review back in the day. Go back and read that review now and then try to play that game today. It doesn't hold up. But the sad fact is, it's not due to time, it's not due to the passage of generations, and it's damn sure not to do with outdated mechanics. The game was trash when it came out. The problem is, all it did was appeal to a bunch of 11 and 12-year-old little boys' violent fantasies, when their parents should have been taking them to therapy to address their anger issues so that they didn't grow up being the next Ted Bundy Instead, they were buying these kids, these little murderous psychopaths, copies of God of War, where they could chop, hack, and decapitate their way through a game that literally the only selling point is the amount of gore and the amount of ancient goddess tits that you'll see. Those are the only two things that God of War has going for it. They're the only two things that God of War has ever had going for it. Until 2018 rolled around and those amazing people finally got what it took to make God of War modern. How does it feel, Jaffe, knowing that you had nothing to do with what everybody regards as the greatest God of War game ever? How does it feel not having anything to do with giving Kratos an actual character and not just letting his entire arc be defined about him screaming up at some ancient god? I mean, God, that voice actor's throat must have been raw as shit by the time he was done, because all of his lines were screamed. That's the type of writing. That's the type of AAA mastermind perfect narrative writing that we had back in 2005, and shit like that still permeates throughout the industry today. But, I can sit here and complain about the outdated mechanics. I can sit here and complain that God of War wasn't anywhere near as good as people hyped it up to be, which, spoiler alert, it wasn't, it isn't, and it never will be. But there's a much more egregious and glaring issue here, and that is the fact that even back in the day, people like to cite God of War as being a monumental paradigm shift in the industry, when in actuality, all Jaffe and his crackpot team did is they ripped off better series. Explain to me what God of War does better than Devil May Cry. For that matter, explain to me what Devil May Cry 1 and 3 do better than Devil May Cry 2. Devil May Cry 2 is criminally underrated, easily the best of the entire series, and that's including that recent bullshit that Capcom shat out in the form of Devil May Cry 5. But if you look at God of War and Devil May Cry side by side, you'll notice very glaring and very offensive similarities. This is everything from those previously aforementioned camera angles, which would have been on their way out, but Jaffe and his ridiculous team of idiots had to stack them into a new trilogy that gamers had a fucking wet dream over. The combat's so much better, so much more refined in Devil May Cry. Your hits actually have weight. The combat has an element of tactical thinking to it. You chain together your combos. Everything free flows so much better in Devil May Cry. I mean, seriously, guys, do you want me to sit here and just keep going over how Jaffe and his team of completely inebriated incels managed to rip off one of the greatest franchises of all time? And isn't it a stark footnote in the book of history that God of War started to get good the moment Jaffe left? And what has he done? He's done fuck all since then. This man is a stain on the industry, and he must be eradicated. I have taken it upon myself to see to it that everybody who is responsible for a disgustingly overhyped game gets canceled. Yes, we must get the cancel Jaffe hashtag trending on Twitter. We must get his attention. We want a public apology. Not just for Twisted Metal, not just for God of War. We want a public apology for all the bullshit that he and his team of dedicated disciples decided to bestow us and bless us with, that have resulted in some of the worst video games I have ever personally seen and played. I sat through God of War 1. I sat through God of War 2. They were so terrible. My hands ached after, but not because of the pain of playing the game, because my body was actively trying to reject something that it knew was hurting my mind. Much like God of War is meant to appeal to the mindless, violent, and sexual fantasies of young teenage men, when somebody of my stature, somebody of my IQ, my higher brain pattern attempts to entertain such garbage as that, I can literally feel the IQ points dropping live. Now, despite this, I powered through this game knowing that as soon as it was over, as soon as the credits rolled, thank God, best part of that game, period, that I could return to my 15th century textbook and continue learning about things that are significantly more interesting than Kratos screaming at Zeus or screaming at Ares or screaming at whatever god, because that's the only narrative that the folks knew back in the day how to push forward. Oh, we gotta get across that Kratos is angry. How do we get across that he's angry? Well, have him kill a bunch of people and have him scream at a bunch of gods. Oh, that sounds good to me. There you go. That was a sneak peek into Jaffe's process when he was coming up with the character of Kratos, because this man has no depth. I'm not even going to call him a man. He's a fucking peon. He's a neckbeard nerd who was dumb enough to, get this is actually in the game, kill his entire family, not realize he's killing his entire family, and then cry about the fact that he killed his entire family. Oh my God, Jaffe. I want to know what you were smoking when you wrote this shit. I really do. Jaffe, I want to know what you were thinking when you designed that level down in hell when you're trying to climb out, because that shit was so infuriating, I almost broke my PlayStation. Like, honestly, these games are so terrible. And the fact, you go on his YouTube channel today, you can see it in that man's eyes. He knows the games are trash. He's had to, for fucking 15, 16 years now, pretend like they're good? I can see it in his eyes. David, you're tired. You don't have to carry around the burden of being the only one who acknowledges that God of War is filth. You don't have to keep lying to us. I will share that burden with you. Together, I will air your public apology on my channel. I will put the video out of you giving the gamers the apology that we deserve, the apology that, quite frankly, is 12 years overdue, and then we can begin to rebuild your reputation in the community. Now, I don't work for free, but I know you got plenty of money from your God of War days, so you get in contact with me, and we'll get you set up with making things right. We'll get you set up with renewing the David Jaffe brand, with fixing your reputation, and we're going to start by denouncing God of War. And furthermore, I want you to come out and say that God of War 2018 is better than anything you could have come up with, anything you could have came up with back in the day, anything you could come up with now. And as soon as that's out there, as soon as people know that this man is sorry and he acknowledges the fact that he doesn't have near as much talent in his entire body as the team that's currently helming Sony Santa Monica, then we will begin the transformation of David Jaffe into a new man. And holy shit, is it going to start by shaving that fucking beard. Thank you for putting gaming into a horrendous state for the last 15 years. Thank you for being single-handedly responsible for a bunch of mechanics that straight up ruin experiences. But most of all, thank you for releasing trash games like Twisted Metal and God of War, games that got overhyped to hell and gone, and that you can very easily tell the type of folks that they appeal to, I want nothing to do with.